Tonight I think is a very important opportunity for us. In the end of the book of Deuteronomy, which we are now in the midst of and will be finishing in a number of months when it comes to Simchat Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jewish people, he says, Zchor Yemot Olam, which means remember the days, Binu Shnot Dor Vador. And he says, Binu, understand from one generation to the next. And these are actually two different declarations that he's making. One is Zchor, which means remember, retell the facts. But he also says Binu. The word Bina means understand. You know, oftentimes you can read a history. You know, you can go on our website, you can get a very nice history of the synagogue. But when you hear stories, with those we know are really the best medium of not only recording history, but capturing certain emotions, challenges, community, that really is a true way to reflect what a shul, what a community is all about. So this evening, I think in many ways we are fulfilling that mitzvah by really having a wonderful opportunity, hopefully one of many numerous ones down the road, to really appreciate some of the history of Agudat Shalom. Oftentimes we come to synagogue and we think, well, it's us. But really, the shul, thank God, how many years old is the shul, Rabbi?
1889 was when the first minyan was. We bought the cemetery about 1893, I think. But this is only since 1965.
So it's certainly over a century, and if not more. Definitely more. And
go
ahead.
I am not over a century. I look like it, but that's not true.
That is true. Clarification. Thank you for that, Rabbi. And it's important for us that are here today, really, to have an appreciation of a lot of the past, because I think also it helps inform our future. So we're blessed tonight to have, of course, Rabbi Aaron Krantz. Let's give a big round of applause. We also have tonight Lorraine Kweskin and Herm Allswanger. Good to see you. So let me just explain for a moment the format for this evening. I've asked each of our panelists to share about a 5-10 minute reflection about some of the most significant memories they have of Agudat Shalom. Then I have a few teasers, some questions, just to share some more memories so that we can take some questions from those that are here. Then we also have a brief tribute from one of Rabbi Aaron Krantz's students from many years ago, who's here, who wants to share a thought. And then we're going to have a little time for what I call open stand-up memories. If you have a memory you'd like to share for a minute or so about something that you think is important to share, please feel free to do so. We hope to end the program about 9 o'clock, just so people have a sense of timing. You know, it's about 10 to 8 right now, and that'll be followed by refreshments and some davening of Mara for those that would like. So I'd like to first again express my thanks to everyone. Rabbi Aaron Krantz, not only do you serve as the rabbi of our shul of Agudat Shalom for many, many years, but for me personally, you've been a wonderful mentor, a guide, somebody I know that I can share my thoughts with, and I really appreciate our friendship beyond you being the rabbi emeritus for many years in the shul, and just feel privileged to be the rabbi of Agudat Shalom. So without further ado, I'd like to turn over the mic to Rabbi Aaron Krantz and ask everyone using the mic, please hold it very close to your mouth or they will not hear you.
You know, I was going to tell you stories that made me look good. And then I saw Ronnie Schacht here, and I knew that I had to tell you a story that made me look bad. But it didn't bother me. But so let me tell you the good story first, as long as you're here, Ronnie. And there's someone here who also will remember this story. I was early on, I don't know what year it was, but the World Series was beginning, I believe it was on a Wednesday, and it was between the Yankees and the Dodgers. The reason I remember this for many reasons, but mostly because all of the kids that I took to this World Series opener were Dodger fans, and I was a Yankee fan. So this was a tough series. It was Reynolds against Newcomb, and it ended in the 10th inning with a home run by Tommy Henrik. It was a 1-0 game. In those days, pitchers got paid something like $15,000, and they expected them to pitch a whole game. Yesterday, one of the pitchers who's getting $15 million was praised because he made it through 5 innings. I should have been a pitcher. So the reason I tell you this story is because I, being the crazy baseball fan that I was, and in a class teaching youngsters who equally felt that the Dodgers were better, I decided to take them to the game. And what expensive seats. We sat in the bleachers. They raised the price to $1. Used to be 50 cents all year long, $1. I treated the kid, big shot, $1. I treated all the kids. What happened the next day, well, on the way home, the kid said to me, "What shall we say to the teacher when he asks us where we were?" I said, "Tell him you went to see the World Series. If they ask us, how did you get there? We don't drive. You tell him you went with the rabbi." Okay. Another day goes by, and Mr. Who is the principal?
Totus.
No, I'm talking about the high school. No.
Rhodes?
No. Stanford High.
Rhodes.
No.
Hill.
Who is the?
Roy Hill.
No. No. This is going back before that.
No.
Who was the? No, before Rhodes. Okay, whatever it is. I get a call from him. He had a German name. And believe me, when I said hello to him, I saw the swastika. It wasn't there, but that's the way it was. He called me and he asked me if I could come to see him. Oh, why shouldn't I come to see him? He said to me, "I understand that you took youngsters out of school to see a baseball game." I said, "It's not true." Absolutely not true. He said, every one of these youngsters have testified that you took them out of school, your permission, and you took them to a baseball game. I said, "It's just not true." He says, "So what was it?" I said, "I took them to see the World Series." He says, "That's a baseball game." "Oh, the World Series, a baseball game." Now, what kind of an amoritz is he, So we had quite a to-do because the World Series was not a baseball game. This was the World Series, and I never forgot. I was never sorry for what I did. So that's the good story I wanted to tell you. Unfortunately, Ronnie's here, so I got to tell you the other side. I have had, I guess I have, I don't know. I have a little tendency to gamble. I take a chance. I like to take a chance. Sometimes you can win. Doesn't happen, but you can win. So Ronnie was in my class, and I showed him how you can print up tickets. We Xerox. In those days, it wasn't Xerox. We mimeographed, right? We didn't have those Xerox. We mimeographed little cards that you could choose 3 players who you think on that day will get 6 hits. You paid a quarter or a dime, whatever it was, but if they got the 6 hits or more, you collected $1. He cleaned up with this. The problem is they caught him. It's not exactly the kind of thing they wanted to see someone in high school do. And he came to me, he said, "What shall I say?" You tell him your rabbi taught him that, you got to tell him the truth. So we both got into a little trouble, but we got out of it. And look, Ronnie finally became a lawyer. There's no big credit. Are you an honest lawyer? What a contradiction in terms. Okay. So he made it through law school, and I've made it through 62 years in Stanford and 2.5 years in Tel Aviv. So it didn't hurt us. It didn't hurt us. the idea was, for me, the idea is to know that to be a Torah person, to believe that there is a connection between God and the human being, that you must not be a narrow person, but broad. You must not gamble. That's not what I tried to tell you, but you've got to have a little understanding of what American culture is, and without baseball, there was no American culture. So every kid in my class was a baseball fan, and therefore for me to make it available for them to go to see a World Series instead of sitting in a classroom, no brainer for me. You have some experience with baseball.
Yeah, we'll turn it over to Herm, who's going to share some memories. All right, go ahead, Herm.
Okay. Thank you. Shalom for everybody. It's nice seeing all of you in here. And Rabbi, and your beautiful wife, and I want you to know your daughter is at our camp, and she's got those little kindergarten boys, and she is fabulous for them. Just wanted you to know. But Sharon, first of all, I was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, Rabbi, so you know we're on odds in there. And the only thing, when we finally beat you in 1955, I had to be in college, but I came home just to see you and let you know we finally beat you. All right? So I want you to know that. But my beautiful relationship with the rabbi started when I was like almost 14 years old. And then I made the high school team. I was one of the first Jewish ball players that made the team. And Rabbi encouraged me because it wasn't easy. But I won't go into that except to tell you how hard it was. The rabbi wanted to really break the mold. He wanted, as you know, he set up youth groups. But many of you don't know that he wanted to have a basketball team and wanted us to play in the church league and eventually call it church and synagogue league. All right? So I went to the meetings with him. He asked me, I couldn't play, but he asked me to coach, get a team. Well, we had to go before the boards there to see if they would allow us. And finally they did. Then Rabbi tells him, we can't play Saturday afternoon. We got to play Saturday evening, an hour after Shabbos is okay. And would that be all right? Well, it was. So now the rabbi says, okay, you're going to coach. He said, now I know you don't have a good team or anything, but they're new and all. But if you can win a game or two, it won't hurt. Right? Well, these boys worked hard. They knew that they got into it. And the Jewish Center allowed us to practice one day, then we asked for 2 days, and we started winning and winning and winning. However, in order for the boys to play, Rabbi said they have to come either Shabbos or they got to come to Shul Sunday. And we'll have breakfast for them. They can have lox and bagel, and we'll have the men's club come in and serve them, okay? And it was great because it brought my team together and all. But they must come one of the 2 days. If they don't, they can't play. And this team takes off and is so, enthusiastic, and it gave me a chance to see if I love coaching. And what happens? We were winning. And we now come into the semifinals. Okay? We have 2 games to go, and we can win the championship. But there was two tremendous teams that we had to face. What happens? One boy decided not to come Shabbos, and he doesn't come to the Sunday. The rabbi says, don't worry about a thing. God is with you. You're going to do okay. I said, Rabbi, he's the only guy that can get the rebounds for us. No, he says, you can't. God will be with you. Well, God will be with you, but I think my heart was pounding in there. And sure enough, we win on a miracle by 2 points to go to the finals. Well, that kid came the next time. And now we play the Baptist church, who took over the synagogue, all right? And they were a tremendous team. They killed every single team. They were all black, and they were great and good kids. And I said, oh my God, well, we got a special thing we're going to work on. And we did. The rabbi, don't worry, God's on your side. You got it, don't worry, all right? Anyway, guess what happens? We won the championship. But it was the rabbi who started me on my coaching career. I knew I had something there, and I appreciated what he did because it wasn't easy when I got into the, into coaching and so forth. So that's a credit to you and what you did for all the kids and all, and they remember that. I still have a relationship with those kids, believe it or not. So. Oh, it has to be 1945. It's
No,
around 47, I think.
No, I didn't get.
No, I was
That's
15,
that's
16.
that's bad because I
I'm
didn't get
16.
I didn't get it till 48. So if it happened
48.
before I
Okay,
became
so it's 50.
that's what he was
No, it's 50. No, 51, 52. Somewhere around
right,
51.
51 to 52.
1951. Okay. Now, yes.
Just to piggyback on what you just said, I brought an article in that was from the Bulletin when my brother Jerry Knightlick took over from Hermie, and his team also
he
won
did.
the championship.
Yes, he did.
I wouldn't allow it any other way.
Yeah, so that was a great experience in there. And Rabbi did many things to help me out. The only thing that I got to I'll tell a story about, someone asked me, well, come on, all these positive things about the rabbi, give us a little negative thing. Well, the only thing was that I could tell you is that when I was in the service, and I was kashrus then, I was kosher, and I would go in there. I'm drafted after college, and then you had to go. And fine, it didn't bother me, it was great shape and all and so forth, but there's no kosher food, there's nothing. So I keep on going, and finally I'm in for a year, and I'm sent out to Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I'm starving because they put us out on the maneuvers, and you were 4 days, all you could have was Spam and bread and milk or water. I didn't have the Spam, and I was starving. I come off, and I see, we won the maneuvers, the battle, and I had something to do with a key thing, and what do you think they're going to serve us? Ham. I got it up to here. I said, no, can't do it. No, that's it. Well, I spoke to my dad. I came home and he saw how I was initiated, whatever I was. I was even lower weight than I was before Bar Mitzvah. So that was pretty skinny. And he says, we got to do something. So he went to the rabbi, and the rabbi went to the Jewish Welfare Board, I think it was, or whoever it was.
Jewish Welfare Board.
Yeah, Jewish Welfare Board. And so they were sending me boiled chicken in a can. And then gefilte fish, all right? In a can. Well, I love my mother's gefilte fish because nobody made it like her, all right? Well, I got to tell you, Rabbi, I didn't touch gefilte fish for 25 years when I got out. That's how bad it was. So that's my little dig on you. But Rabbi, you were so wonderful to all of us. Growing up, Ron Shack was our president, I think, at a youth group, and he led us. And not only that, we had such a great feeling for the synagogue. And I got to tell you that one of the beautiful things you did is when my mother passed away here, you were beautiful to my father, and he came every day, for 11 months. He and I came, and you renewed your relationship because he used to argue when you first started with some of the elders that didn't really want such a young rabbi and was against it and so forth. And he used to give them to him in there. But when my mother died, your relationship, you kept him going because you would kibitz with each other, whether it was the tie he didn't like or whatever. But they had a beautiful, beautiful relationship. That was you. And kept him going and so forth. And so I only can thank you for that because it meant a lot to all of us in there. And I have to tell you a story about him because you didn't know this, nor did I, until his final hours. Mr. Harry Rimlin, as you know, knew all the history that went on. He'd let you know. And he came to that hospital that night because he heard my father was very ill and low. And he said, would you mind if I could see your father? He was my hero. And I said, your hero? I said, what did he do? He said, you don't know? He never told me. He said, Max. Poor Max says, my father said, yes, Harry, yes. And he said, what did you do? He said, you never told the story, what you did? He said, when they had the shul, it was right next to where they lived. As a matter of fact, the original shul was, the 22 families was in my grandfather's house, I was told, on Grey Rock Place. And they bought or rented this little shul next door, a store. And somebody set fire to it. And he woke up, he was 12 years old, and he wakes his brother up that was 10. And they both ran down and they ran into this fire and got the Torahs out. No,
his father.
No, my father and his brother Abe. They both ran. Never knew this until the on the deathbed. Isn't that something? But Rabbi, I got to tell you, you were so personable and wonderful to us as we grew up, and I wanted the Rabbi to marry us, okay? And it's going to be 51 years ago on August 20th, my lovely bride over there, 13 days, and you came down to South Orange, New Jersey. We didn't marry here, we went down to her South Orange, New Jersey, you came. And the nice part, Rabbi, I got to tell you, that our shoulder's in good hands. You've got a great rabbi right here.
Right.
Very personable and the kindness of your life. I'm honored to be here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Lorraine.
So I want a couple of things I want to go on record. Number one, I'm not as old as any of these. Well, that one, excluding Rabbi Cohn. That's the first thing. Second of all, I'm here instead of Sharon because I'm older. It's the only time I will ever admit that. And I do not play any kind of sport, and nobody knows that better than Myrna, who used to say, do a lap, like, and I was going to say question, but I wasn't going to question. So while the rabbi was busy with the teams and the basketball teams and going to the World Series, he also started a tradition in Stamford, and probably further than that, and you'll have to tell me. We had the first bat mitzvah here in Stamford.
Right.
It was not me, it was my cousin Leslie Barkin, now Shapiro.
Right.
And rumor has it one of the reasons that she was chosen is because she had a beautiful, beautiful voice. And I was hoping she was going to be here tonight so that you could see who she was. So in my family, I've always been, second. So second to my cousin. But my bat mitzvah was very unique. Sharon knows why. The way bat mitzvahs were done then, we were 13, we were not 12. And we each did one of the judges, I believe. So I did Deborah, the judge, and my bat mitzvah, as you'll see on this little thing, was supposed to be February 1st. Hopefully the year is not there.
I remember that.
So my mother, as most of you probably know, was a baker. And she would come to the synagogue and she would bake, and the old synagogue, the whole building would smell like Dayton nut bread. That was her specialty. And the rabbi would come down to the kitchen and say, what's going on here? And she'd give him a little snack, which was wonderful. February 1st in Stamford, Connecticut, that year, which...
5 feet of snow?
Yeah, about 5 feet of snow. So we're sitting on McClurg Avenue in Waterside thinking, oh my God, what do we do? How do you call the rabbi? You can't call the rabbi. So I don't know if some of you remember or not, but there was a wonderful, wonderful, what would you call him now? Engineer. He was the custodian, but you had a fancy name. His name was Bob. So Mom said, I've got to call. I don't know what else to do. So she called, and Bob and the rabbi relayed messages to her. Like, there's 5 feet of snow. Should we have it? And the rabbi's saying, who's going to come? It was really a shame. The good news is that Martha Fodeman, who's the other person in this picture, her bat mitzvah was on February 15th. So because they weren't special haftarahs for the week, we could just trade. And I had my bat mitzvah on February 8th without any snow at all. It was wonderful. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to tell you about was the Hebrew Ladies Educational League. And probably a lot of you were active in that. You would probably know more about it than I do. But there was a tradition in the synagogue where before the High Holy Days,
Candle.
Yeah, we'd make the candle. And I don't know if you remember when the alcove used to look like this before the Bennett Simcha room. The Hebrew Ladies Education League, on the Sunday before Rosh Hashanah, there would be services at the cemeteries, and the women would go around with a long string and measure the cemetery
Periphery.
periphery. And then they would use that string to make a wick for a candle that would burn during Yom Kippur. And then they would do another, that would be for the people who had died. And if I get into this wrong, jump in. And then they would go and do the perimeter of
You understand they're going to light a candle. She wants me to jump into the fire about it. I wasn't sure.
No, correct me. And then there would be another candle for the living, and that would be done going around the perimeter of the synagogue. And Mrs. Manger, I believe, brought this custom from Europe. This is what they did in their shtetl. And the women would get together and do beeswax and knead the wax, and then roll it around these wicks and make two candles that. And my mother's concern every Yom Kippur was, oh my God, what if the candles go out? What would happen if they go out? What does it mean if they go out? You know, it means the candle went out. So, anyway, it was a very lovely tradition. And there are those who say that the Hebrew Ladies Educational League was actually the original JFS of Stanford.
Well, let me further.
I would like
Laurie,
to. Yeah.
one thing you forgot,
Okay.
women would get together at Marshall Lieberman
Right.
and they would charge to tie knots
Oh,
in the,
that's
in the
right.
wick.
That's
And
right.
this was one of the major fundraisers for the Hebrew Ladies Educational League. And this went on for years and years and years. And the money was collected so that they could give food to the poor people for young.
Thanks, Chris. You're right.
I'd like to elaborate on that just one minute. There is a tradition that when you make Havdalah at the end of Yom Kippur, you don't light a match, but you take it from an existing flame. So you always had the candle that they made was posted in the synagogue. So when we made Havdalah, we took the flame from that candle. So we didn't have to create a new flame. May I tell you, I want you to hear a story that you should understand. When a young person puts his head in a place with majority of older people, what the problems could be. I'll give you just a simple example. I came here just past my 22nd birthday. I had as much right to be a rabbi then as you have a right to be a surgeon. I mean, there's just nothing. But I was here, and because I grew up in a shul where my father was the rabbi, I knew shtick. I knew how to. So I came into the synagogue every day, and I noticed this. Some of you, I don't know how many of you remember Grove Street Synagogue. Yeah. And the Grove Street Synagogue downstairs where the Daily Minyan was, there was a spittoon. And when they came in, everybody, there was nobody under 104, you know. That's the way it looked like to me. And didn't have an exact aim, and did not, for some reason, well, it's not traditional to use a tissue, and they certainly weren't going to use their handkerchief, so they used the spittoon and often came very close. If you walked into that synagogue, believe me, it had a fragrance you don't want. So I got myself a key to the synagogue because I was rabbi already, you know, and I was there maybe 2 months, but by February I was getting sick. So one day I came back after it was all over. I came back with a hard brush and a shmata, a mop. I cleaned up the periphery. I took this gorgeous spittoon and I buried it. Thinking to myself, Nobody's going to notice because they really don't want it. Mr. Chowsky, God rest his soul. I know I get a call from Mr. Weinkrot, the president of the synagogue. There's going to be a board meeting next week. We'd like you to appear to the board. Now, I want to tell you, I was a student at yeshiva, and I was here only on weekends, but I got a summons to come to a board meeting. I didn't know what it was all about, but when I came to the board meeting, there was Mr. Chowsky. And Mr. Chowsky has a piece of paper which says, an Orthodox synagogue must have a spittoon. Now, going back 2,000 years ago, it would not have been a terrible bad idea. For the 20th century, it made me sick. So he came to the board meeting and said, this young man, he's no Orthodox rabbi. And the proof of it is he's certain that it was me who did away with the spittoon. It took something. Now, it was not easy to convince a board that that's not a halacha, it's not a law, and that it was the understanding hundreds of years ago before tissues that it was but there was nothing wrong with remove it. I made my first victory. I was still 22 because it was February, and I stayed on for a while.
Yeah, thank you.
Rabbi, wait,
It's all right.
Go ahead, Millie.
oh, Rabbi, I want to say to you that I remember when I was about 14 years old, my father said that I must go to shul every Shabbos. And I sat in one of the front rows, and lo and behold, there was this young guy that came this particular Shabbos, and that was you. And I remember Chazan
Schulzen.
And I remember there was the rabbi, he hadn't been there for very long, but he was leaving because he was going into the army to become a chaplain there.
Rabbi Melechstadt?
Yeah, she's mixing up.
Okay. And I remember the two of them leaning over your back while you were reading the Torah to make sure that you didn't make a boo-boo while you were reading. I never forgot that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that memory. Do you want to amplify that?
Well, it was Rabbi Teicher at the time. Teicher, Teicher, and he went from here to Montreal, where he was for a very long time until he passed away. And it was Rabbi Schachter in 1940-41 who was here as the rabbi who went to joined the chaplaincy at an army, and as a matter of fact, he was there at the liberation of Auschwitz. I don't know whether we've had, during my reign, we had Rabbi Schachter here several times tell his stories.
And his son has been here. That's Rabbi
J.J.
Schachter,
Schachter, sure.
Yeah. Herm, can you tell us about how you became the coach of Stanford High? I know it was a difficult time.
Very difficult. Basically, I took a bunch of boys, and I was always encouraged by a lovely bride over there. And what happened was, I decided I wanted education. She encouraged me. I wanted to coach, and I took the Jewish boys at the Jewish Center Stanford, and I coached them. They all got cut off the team, and I knew how that felt because I knew there was a lot of prejudice, and they should have made the team. Particularly this one boy, Phil Berger, who was fabulous, and remember he became one of the famous sports writers in our time. He's a member here. And anyway, I got them together, and they had a great desire, and they wanted to win and to prove something. And sure enough, we beat New Haven for the Connecticut Championship, and we go on to Boston to play for the New Englands, and these kids, they just wouldn't give in. I mean, they win. And they go on to play for the national championship up in Buffalo. And it was cold in there, and they played at Canisius College. How the Jews got into a Catholic school like that, I don't know, but they did. place was packed. We played Allentown, Pennsylvania, and they were the defending champs. Our kids come out and they win. They go out and they beat them. They were on such a mission. It was so beautiful. And then we have to play New York, your Bronx team, okay? Big guys, 6'7", 6'5". They crushed the team that they had played. We took one look and said, oh boy, we're in trouble. But we came back. Instead of partying, these kids went to bed, like I told them, ate what they're supposed to eat. The other team, they went out and partied, all right? Because we saw them. Well, to make a long story short, what happens? We're winning, we're beating this team, and then everything falls apart. They're making a great comeback. We're up by 9 points with just minutes to go, and now it's only 1 point and seconds to go in the game, and they have the ball. And all I did was say, get that ball, whatever you do, when they miss, I said, you're gonna get that ball, boom, and you just hold on to it. Well, the kid jumps up, they missed the shot, he jumps up and knocks himself out on the floor, lays over the ball, and the buzzer goes off, and we win. We then beat New Jersey for the final. What a great story, what a great comeback in here. Now all these kids, so what happens now, I go for the job at the Stanford High School, and it wasn't easy, okay? But I knew the principal wanted me, Dr. Reardon. Okay, you remember that?
Sure.
All right?
Sure.
And he wanted basketball there, and he knew what was going on, the prejudice that was going on in there. So sure enough, he appoints me, and he said, look, as the assistant coach, he said, I know the coach you played for, I know what's going on. He said, but don't make a mistake. All right, whatever you do, don't make a mistake. All right, they don't want you, but I want you. Sure enough, I come out and I have the tryouts. And remember the team I told you about that we beat, the synagogue, the black community team? They were great, and I pick them, okay? The next day, I get called down, and there's the athletic director and the coach in the room, and they say, look, you got too many ends, all right? I want to use that in the sanctuary. It was awful. I said, what? I said, I don't think that way, I don't coach that way. I said, we're educated. I'm trying to give them a lecture, all right, to the guys that are most prejudiced that I knew when I played for them. So I go on, and they're not listening. They said, we don't care. We don't want them, that's it. The athletic director said, well, maybe take one. I said, I don't think that way, I'm not going to do it, no way. I said, all right, we said, that's an order. To this day, I was not a wise guy or anything, where God gave me the aptitude, whatever to say, I said, okay, put it in writing. Oh, he said, you're a wise guy also. You're never going to get the head coach. I said, yes, I will get there because you don't belong there. And I went down, I saw the rabbi, came home, told my wife, pack the bags, I'm out of here, they're going to fire me. I said, I went down, and the rabbi said, you did right, proud of you, stick it out. Just stick in there, stick in there. And finally, after 4 years of really unbelievable experiences of prejudice and everything you could think of, God was good. Reardon came to me and said, I made a mistake, I should have done this earlier. You're the new head coach. They don't want you. The athletic, be careful. Don't make a mistake. Thank Rabbi Ankrantz for his guidance and all, and God's good health, and had a great career. And it pays to do what's right out there. And so I was proud of that. And all these boys to this day, I'm still in touch with them. They don't boys anymore. They're like me, 60, 70 years old. You know, wish I was 60. Anyway, it was great, and I thank you for that guidance.
You know, I see Mrs. Osmond here. Reminds me of something I'm extremely proud. It used to give me a high every year. Rosh Hashanah, our service would start at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I decided early on that I will not speak until all the service is over, after Musaf. Well, that's the biggest crowd, you know. By that time, by 1 o'clock, everybody was here. Bethel used to finish their service about 12:30. And I remember the Osmonds were one couple of many who, after the service was through at Bethel, would come down here to hear the sermon. And this used to happen year after year, that there was standing room only for the sermon on Rosh Hashanah. And I was very grateful for that. It made me feel, I had a great Rosh Hashanah. Every year was good.
Thank you very much. I was told to ask you about Louis Lotstein and an ultimatum.
Yeah. I don't know if some of you might remember the story. Louis Lotstein became president May of 1952. And this was, for me, so good because I saw new blood. I'd never met him before. He had never been to shul, or I'd never seen him. So he became president. I was told he was a wealthy man and that he was a really, first of all, he was a powerhouse in the community. He was interested in the Jewish Center. He was interested in the Federation, well, no Federation, United Jewish Appeal, bonds. He was interested in everything so that he was a good image. So when he became president, I was very, very happy. He called me and he said, like, come in to see me. I was so happy to see him, yes. He says, Rabbi, let me give it to you straight. I hear you're about the laziest guy that there ever was. You're totally incompetent. You have nothing new to offer. And now that I'm president, I'm going to give you 1 year. And you're going to have to prove yourself because as far as I'm concerned, you're history. Wow. I was a little more mature. I was no longer 22. You know, every year I get a little older. So this was 1952. So I was scared stiff. And I did talk to my dad. Everything that I did, I talked to my dad. And he said, ignore it. Do what you think is right. Work hard. Just ignore it. My dad's advice was correct. I followed through what I thought was right. I did what I always did to the best of my ability. To Louis' credit, it was after Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur or before, and I don't remember, but he called me into his office again, which when I heard he wants me in his office was not a great thing. At this time I wasn't so happy to see him, but he told me I made a mistake. I listened to the wrong people. Whatever I told you was things that I heard, and it's nonsense. I want to tell you I'm with you, and he gave me an offer. I want you to innovate. Try new things. Do the best you can in everything. If it works, you get the credit. If it doesn't work, I'll take the blame for it. And that's a great, great offer that I got. Louis was president here for the Constitution said you could only have 5 years. He was president for 2 5-year periods, 10 years, in which I'm telling you the synagogue grew under Lotstein and under Kuryansky. That was 15 years. Lotstein, Kuryansky, Lotstein, those 15 years. I'll tell you one thing as an oddity. Agudas Shalom, by the end of those 15 years, Agudas Shalom was larger than Temple Bethel and Temple Sinai put together. We had more, our membership was larger than both temples. And as far as I know, and I've researched this, but I don't know 100%, I believe that Stanford is the only community in all of the United States where the Orthodox synagogue had a larger membership than the conservative or the Reform synagogue. So I was very, very proud of that. And the lay leadership here played a tremendous. You talked about these breakfasts, Sunday morning breakfasts. We had 2 guys, Joe Cohn. How many of you remember Joe Cohn? Melech Cohn. Melech Cohn, does that name mean anything to you? Melech Cohn's son was Joe Cohn. Joe Cohn used to come in every Sunday. No. I had his name in my mind. A young man, very, very good man. These 2 men went out. What? Oh, no, it was not the microphone. These 2 men went out and bought lox and bagels and cream cheese. And the eggs. Joe Cohn they bought the kind of things you mix the eggs in, you know, and did the frying of the eggs or whatever it is, but they had lox and bagels and cream cheese with eggs every Sunday morning. And I want to tell you, kids at 16 and 17, they could eat lox and bagels and cream cheese and eggs. You had nachas from watching them. 3 bagels and 20 eggs. I don't know, there was no end to it. And these 2 men, Joe Cohn, I can't remember the other guy's name, they had such fun, such joy. They did this with simcha, and the kids loved them. And it was a great thing. By the way, it was an attraction. They came. They had to put on tefillin Sunday morning. They came Sunday morning to put on tefillin, and they davened out loud, and they davened with the words. And the kids grew up. It was a pleasure to see. I enjoyed. Even I had bagel and cream cheese and lox and eggs. The eggs were lox and onions and eggs. Right? They made it right. That's why.
Now you're talking.
I think each one of them had a dozen. But it was great.
Thank you.
Rabbi, who's they play football with?
No football. I don't remember football.
What did you play football with?
What Jewish mother let her kids to play
They
football?
played with you, Rabbi.
No,
They touch football.
Oh, I'll tell you a baseball story. Sure, I don't remember. Yes, I remember playing touch football. No tackle. No, I'm Jewish. We played baseball. Now, as a kid growing up, when you're 22, you should excuse me. There's nobody here that age. When you're 22, you're a kid. You could be a rabbi, but you're a kid. When you're 23, you're a kid. When you're 24, you're a kid. But I had the pleasure of working with youth. By the way, what else could I do? The older people of the congregation didn't particularly see me as their spiritual leader. And I understand that. I was a little annoyed when they said, I'll say it in Yiddish the way they said, mir haben sich geordnet mit der Rav, soll sich spielen mit den Kindern. Okay? We got a rabbi, we pay him, so he should play with the children, But it wasn't pretty good. But I did play baseball with them. We played on Sunday morning after we had the minyan and everything. And I remember on the team, I got up. I was never a great hitter. I used to play baseball. I was a good fielder, but never a good hitter. So this day I got up and I hit the ball. I think it was between between right and center. I never pulled the ball right. So I see the ball going far, and in my lifetime I never did anything but get a single. I never got an extra base hit in my lifetime. I saw the opportunity, and I come sliding into second base, and the kid with the ball, chutzpah, he yells out. He yells out. Ich kann euch nicht schreien. I said, I yell safe. He yells out again. By this time we're getting a little crowd. The shortstop's coming over. First base coming. I said, safe. Do you think your rabbi would lie to you? And the kid says, yes. I walked off the field and I never got my extra base hit.
That was a great story. Lorraine, I know you had a nice story about Mr. S with the yarmulke. You want to share that?
So when I was learning for my bat mitzvah, a new guy came into town, and not that anybody should know, I don't want him to hear this, I really had a major crush on him. Major. Dina, I hope you forgive me. So what was so cool about Walter when he came to town was he used to wear these really cool, we call them yarmulkes. I guess now they're called kippahs, but we called them yarmulkes. And what was so cool about it was in the back, it had like a little belt. Do you remember that? Do you remember this? Like, it was the style then. Hats had little belts, and his yarmulke did. And I just thought that was the coolest thing going. that the principal of our Hebrew school would have this great yarmulke. But I want to tell you exactly how cool he was. There were two girls in my bat mitzvah class, Elaine Salzman and me. And one day we were practicing, we were learning, I think, different parts of the Musaf service, because we would learn them in Hebrew school, and then we would go on Saturday morning and we would be the background because we would learn all the new tunes, and it was very wonderful. And if you all come on a Saturday morning, you'll hear some of those tunes. But anyway, commercial. So Mr. S walked into the classroom and he said, "Great, you guys are doing great. I want you to do this exactly like you're going to do it Shabbos morning." So with that, Elaine and I jumped up, faced east, and started to do the prayers. He thought that was the greatest thing going. He ran to his office and came back and gave us both lollipops. Now, is that a cool man?
I'll tell you something that Walter did that is unbelievable, and we talk about it often. You know that when a child does Mizmor LeDavid on a Sunday morning, on a Shabbos morning, to put the Torahs away, he walks around the congregation, sings Mizmor LeDavid, and there's one leader, and that's the bar mitzvah boy is the leader. Walter, as a joke, put on, each of the boys had to have a Chinese, how was it? It was a tall hat, like with a tassel on it. Right. It looks like a Chinese hat, right? So this goes on week after week. In those days, we had a bar mitzvah every week. Everyone who walked around the congregation singing Mizmor LeDavid wore that hat. Well, one day we get a president of the congregation who probably had never been to a synagogue before. And he went to visit a congregation out of town, and he tried to explain to them how great a synagogue we had, which he was president of. Why, we're the only synagogue ever where the young man who walks around wears a special yarmulke with a tassel on it. It's like nobody could do that. That was the end, Walter. We never let anybody wear that again, right? I remember that. Oh, there's another story. What?
It's your testimony. Oh, my. But share another story.
The railing, yes. On the pulpit, there was a railing going from one end to the other, and it was I used to follow what my father did, and my father never stood still and spoke, but he used to go on. So I was walking from one side to the other while I was addressing the congregation, and it was beginning to annoy a number of people, and even me, and I thought it was not a good idea. So I thought the best thing we could do, if we could get rid of that railing, somehow remove the railing, and then I wouldn't walk back and forth. I'd be afraid of fall, so I would maybe stay put, sit nicht geholfen, but it doesn't make any difference. So I needed an accomplice. I probably couldn't pick the railing up myself. So like a good Jew would do, we came in midnight to the synagogue. We unscrewed the railing and threw it in back. Do you remember where the big mountain in the back? We threw it in the back, and you know the oddity of it? No one ever said a word to us about a missing railing. Nobody missed it. We didn't accomplish anything.
Herb, go ahead.
I got a great story about Rabbi. He was given a sermon, a beautiful sermon, and he gets through the sermon. This is on the high holy days, and he gets through and he says, "Any questions?" And Rabbi, I want to know. Somebody in the audience called and said, "Rabbi, I want you to explain to us. We understand that Stanford High School played on Yom Kippur, and they won the game. Now tell us, how could that be? They had a Jewish boy on the team playing." The rabbi thought they played Danbury. He said, I heard about this, and I investigated, and I want you to know. He said, yes, Stanford High had a Jewish boy playing on Yom Kippur. Nish good. But he said, I found out that the team they beat, Danbury, had 2 Jewish players. I'll never forget that. That's how I got out of it. But I want you to know what he did after that. He made sure that there were no games. He fought and made sure there were no games on Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, the holidays. Okay? Stanford High had a change after that, and he got it done, and he got it through, and that was beautiful.
With the help of Rabbi Silver
Yes.
at the Reform Temple, the synagogue, the school system closed down on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. The question was whether Rosh Hashanah they would close down 2 days or 1 day, and that's where Rabbi Silver really helped me, because he only observed 1 day Rosh Hashanah, but he joined with me in petitioning the school system to close down both days Rosh Hashanah, and that's what they did. I thought that was very, very nice.
Rabbi, hold on.
One other.
I want you to know it didn't change, all right? That there, a Jewish center wanted to open, only observe 1 day. This rabbi took over and made sure to close 2 days on that. So we still have our battles even within our own. So it was a beautiful job you did. Yep.
Thank you very much. I'd like to actually ask Ethan Schaff, who is here, who knows Ray Ehrenkrantz from a different perspective, to share a brief thought. And then for the last 15 minutes, people have certain memories. They can come up and share like a brief minute memory or so. Ethan, great to see you, and also great to have your mom here as well.
I'll speak loud enough.
Oh, they like it, trust me.
Let me try to yell, and if it's no good, I'll use this, okay? Thanks. Robert Clark. Whatever happened to him?
Robert?
Robert Clark.
Yeah, he did all right. Robert?
Yeah?
Yep,
I
he
still
did.
remember him.
Yes, right. Robert played
Clark.
ball at the center, and he played for my high school team.
I
Thank you.
remember.
Yep.
So I knew if I came back to the synagogue once in 30 years, and the rabbi was here, I would recognize at least some people. And I can look out into this audience, and I know most of your names. I recognize Feller, and the Millers, and Bear, and I think so. And I saw the Wolfsons, and Gloria, and Goldblum, and Mrs. Gershberg, and Gail. So it's a stroll down memory lane for me. It's been a long time. Who said Anna Viva? Anna.
She came to the meeting at Yad Vashem.
Correct. Haven't seen you in a while.
And so did the rabbi.
That's where we saw each other last. For me, it all started in the center, in the room next door. The Amud. You would daven from the Amud. And in the 60s and the 70s, that's where it was at. Torah reading.
Oh, he was good.
And you had to get up there and Torah read, and you couldn't wait to do it. And I remember it was and that finger is what got me through it. Does anybody here remember what finger that was? Whose finger? No, Mr. Ginsburg. Mr. Ginsburg. Mr. Cannett and Mr. Ginsburg. A nicer gabbai you would never want to meet. But I love that guy. I didn't know him that well, and we didn't have much conversation, but I remember the finger. And if I was good, if I did it good, I would look right up to the bima. And if I got the nod, I walked straight up. And I have to tell you, that walking straight up, that was an ascension into heaven. And about 5 seconds later, I felt like $1 million. And I would whisk by him after he told me what he needed to tell me, and I would go towards the back, and I would head back to my seat, but I would never make it because this arm would reach out, and I'm going to try to remember her name. I think her name was Ruth Gold. Am I right? About this one?
Rose gold, rose gold, rose
Rose
gold.
gold, I apologize. Her arm would reach out, and she would say, "What'd he say to you?" And I would count on her. And I would always tell her, "I can't remember," because I wanted, it was for me. And I would go back to my seat, and I would wait for the dvar. I would wait for that dvar. And that was no easy task for me, because I had enough ADD to light up a small city. But I would wait for that dvar. And it would come over the ramparts, and I would sit there, and I would listen, and I would learn. And I would learn. And even with my ADD, those words would penetrate me. They would absolutely go into me. I would hear those words. And I think if I live to be 120 years old, I will not forget Yom Kippur, the day the war broke out. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Even his had tears in them. And I remember the timbre of his voice, the raw passion with which he spoke. He took me out of my seat. And those things, coincidentally, I didn't know it then, those were my Yerusha. They stayed with me through my life and are with me every time I get up these days to make a Dvar Torah or to make a closing argument in front of a jury. They are with me. And they infuse, in a way, who I am. But when I make that argument, I remember what I heard. I became a first-hand witness, I want to say. I became a first-hand witness to a love affair between a rabbi and his congregation. I watched it happen. And I watched the selflessness and the unbreakable yichud that happened between a rabbi and his congregation.
You're not getting paid for this, you know.
No. And it was something that I had never seen before. The way a rabbi could interact with his congregation, the selflessness that I saw, the unbreakable yichud between a rabbi and his congregation. Do you remember the way he hugged children?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember the way he hugged children? He would grab them and he would take them into his arms. It was amazing to see me. And he shepherded a flock of congregants through the toughest times, through their trials, through their tribulations, through everything, and moved them forward. I looked at him as almost like a family doctor. Almost like a family doctor. The kind who you don't see anymore. The kind who made house calls. The kind who made house calls. The kind who you only had one in your whole life, and he was your doctor. That was the Rabbi Ehrenkrantz that I knew. That kind of family doctor. And in so many ways, he saved me. Saved me in so many countless ways. You see, I was very lucky. I grew up in his household. I was there with him,
Bart.
immersed with him.
Bart,
And
my son's his age.
I think in some ways my father was jealous. Almost jealous. Because I got to see him on a very close basis. And it was the kind of thing that stayed with me for my whole life. I apologize, but I'm losing my words. Can you imagine calling a rabbi from law school? I would call him in the middle of the night one time. I called him from law school. And I said, and I was scared. It was my first exam. And I called him, and I needed to talk to somebody. I was scared. It was my first exam, and I called him at midnight. And he was able, and he got on the phone, and he talked to me. And he talked me through it. Can you imagine that he was not only my rabbi, but he also did my bris? Now, he drove up and down Hamilton Avenue, back and forth, looking for me, but that's because he didn't know that I was on Hamilton Avenue in Greenwich, Connecticut. And he got there an hour late. But he still showed up, and that's what was important. To this day, who I am is infused by my relationship with Rabbi Ehrenkrantz. And it's been a very valuable thing that's happened to me, because I still think about him, and I still try to keep in touch with him. And his blood flows through my instrument, and his song is in my soul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on.
Now we have about 10 minutes or so. So is there anybody who would like to speak? If you want to raise your hand, come on up for a minute. Actually, I'll just bring you the mic. Go ahead.
There's a lot of rabbis that way.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mark Sternler. I spent 3 wonderful years sitting next to the rabbi. And it was a time when the synagogue was having some problems, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to tell you about the first time I came to the synagogue. We came to the United States, Stanford, in 1968. And I joined the synagogue. I had my sons were with me, and so was my wife. And we came for high holidays. And I had a seat in the first row of the social hall. And we came just in time for Rosh Hashanah services when they were putting on the mantles on the Torahs. So my youngest, 6 years old, Russell, he was absolutely amazed. He's standing next to me. At one point, he tugs on my sleeve, and he says, "Daddy, which one is God?" When I told the story to the rabbi, he said, "What did you tell him?"
Thanks for sharing that memory. Okay, hold on. Brenda?
Oh, I didn't see Brenda.
Hi, I'm Brenda Goshberg-Smith, and I was born in Stanford. And we talk about Rabbi Ehrenkrantz. He's part and parcel of all of our lives for those of us who are natives. And starting with the youth group, we all went to the youth group. I didn't play baseball, but we all went because Rabbi Ehrenkrantz was so young, and we thought he was so cute, and so dynamic, and he infused within us a lot of spirit, and it's still there, that spirit.
That's good.
But that's not what I wanted to say. For many of us looking around the room, I think we all share something that's very unique to Rabbi Ehrenkrantz. I'll take my own life. You married us. You did my son's bris. You buried my parents. You buried my in-laws. You were there all through life's good and bad times. And so you are such an important part of all of our lives because you were there for us, and very special, very special. There's nobody else in my life, and I think for most of us, that has that meaning that you have given us, and the spiritual substance that we've had from you.
Thank you.
But there's something that you don't know about Rabbi Ehrenkrantz as far as his wonderfulness and his good. He's a great travel agent and a great travel leader. And Bruce and I have taken many trips with you, but the one that, and Mark and Harriet were with us, that we went to Egypt and to Israel, and the most fabulous trip, and I will never ever forget the Shabbat in the Cairo hotel, where we had a Shabbat dinner, kosher Shabbat dinner, and you had bottles of Israeli wine, and we toasted the beginning of Shabbat with you in Cairo. And then we took a bus. I felt like Moses in the desert from Egypt to Jerusalem. We stopped to see your daughter. Anyway, it was the most the most fabulous trip. And the rabbi brought Israel to many of us. Many of us never would have gone, or many of us never would have had the experiences we had. It was just fabulous. So I thank you for that, as well as for all the life passages. And also, when we went to Egypt, it was like 6 weeks after NASA was assassinated, and we were all scared. Remember when the lights went out in the Egypt airport? We all hit the floor. But I have here. My brother, Larry Goshberg, who was 2 weeks younger than you, just passed away 8 weeks ago. And I was at his house today, and Marilyn, my sister-in-law, gave me some files of pictures of you and Larry and the things. And I have a copy of the mortgage in 1963 or 65. It was $250,000. And I thought I'd love to see that. And there are pictures too of the, well, you'll see them, of the United States Torah and all the things. I couldn't bring them all here, but they were wonderful, wonderful things. So thank you, Rabbi, for all you've done.
Thank you. Thank you.
On the same trip, I will never forget sitting next to you on a plane to London when you said to me, "Oi, I forgot the passports in the office." But he's the only person in the world who can get a bunch of Jews to Egypt without passports.
I'm Sharon Knightley Bear, in case any of you don't know me. I have so many stories. I don't know where to start. But one thing I wanted to mention, piggybacking again on the sermons that Hermie, you said, I remember sitting there in shul when you were a young kid and figuring out, is he going to give his sermon in Yiddish today or not? there was so many times when when the rabbi gave his sermon in Yiddish. I don't understand Yiddish. I didn't understand Yiddish then, and I don't understand it now. So, but
What about the Hebrew?
no, it was always right. He used to give sermons in Yiddish.
I could not get this position unless I was able to deliver a sermon in Yiddish. Even on Rosh Hashanah, I spoke the first day in English, and the second day Rosh Hashanah was in Yiddish. But on Shabbat, if there was no bar mitzvah, always in Yiddish. There's a bar mitzvah, they allowed me to speak in
But
English.
your father used to give wonderful Yiddish sermons here.
If you understood Yiddish.
My father was the master from whom I studied, from whom I learned.
And when the rabbi was talking about the Sunday morning program, I remember coming to the Sunday morning program, and at that time, and all the teenagers, right, Lorraine? We all came to the program. We knew that Monday and Wednesday, we'd go to Hebrew school, or Tuesday and Thursday, we'd go to Hebrew school. Saturday, we would come to junior congregation. And I was thrilled because I was appointed by Mr. S to be the attendance taker. And I had a little gray filing box with all the kids' names in it. And of course, on Shabbos, you can't write. So what I did was, when I saw someone come in, I would take their name and put it in the back of the box. And then when I went home, I put a check next to everybody's name, and then at the end of the year, Mr. S would ask me for the box. He would look through the box and to see who had perfect attendance or maybe one day missed it, and they would get a Kiddush cup, right, Mr. S? I still have the Kiddush cups. They get a little Kiddush cup trophy for good attendance for junior congregation. And then, so we went to junior congregation Saturday, and then Sunday we went to the breakfast. And the greatest thing was that if there was a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah or sweet 16 the night before, the jukebox would be there, right? Right? The jukebox would be there. So before the rabbi got there, we would turn on the jukebox and we'd start dancing and we'd have a great time. And Ma Fall. How many of you remember Ma Fall? Remember Ma Fall? And she used to come, I guess this is after those guys made the eggs, but she would make the eggs or any other cooking that she would do, and she'd come out in her dirty apron, wiping her hands on her apron to see if everyone, it was spotted, to see if everybody was eating well and had enough food. The other thing I want to say about Mrs. Gold, Mrs. Gold, for many years, was the treasurer of Sisterhood. Well, this was a riot. You go to a Sisterhood meeting, and Mrs. Gold would give a report. And she would tell who made the donations. Now, she wouldn't exactly say how much they gave. However, she would say, we have a donation from Bernice Lang. It was a nice donation. And then she would say, we have a donation from Frida Knopf. It was a nice donation. And we have a donation from Lila Feller. Oh, was it a nice donation? But she would never tell how much. But you kind of knew what the donation was. But the shul in those days, and it's true, everybody, all the kids, including me, I was a kid at one time, and we would all run up to the rabbi, and he'd give us all a kiss, whether it was girls or boys, and he'd give us a hug, whether it was girls or boys, and we would just feel so good. It was just that, it was just that extra special thing that we needed at the end of services. And we thank you, and also to Mr. S. for both of you working as a team and making this shul the warm, special, just the place that you really wanted to go. And we love you both for it.
Thank you.
We have 2 more memories and 3 more. Okay. Go ahead.
All right, I also have a lot of memories, but Rabbi did tell the story when he almost got me thrown into jail. And he also, at one point in my life when I graduated high school, called me and my wife-to-be into his study and told us that we ought to break up because there's no reason for 2 kids to go steady, and we're going to go to college, and we should date a lot of other people because we were much too young. Well, of course, we ultimately proved that that was wrong, and he made up for it because at our wedding, which I don't know if you remember, it was in a conservative temple, and the rabbi there would not allow Rabbi Ehrenkrantz to come in and perform the service because they were having some dispute about something in the ketubah about a divorce, which of course threw me completely because here we're getting married and he's arguing about a provision in the ketubah about divorce. But Rabbi Ehrenkrantz worked it out. It took him a long time, and he actually married us in my then wife's house in the morning. She had her hair in rollers, and I hadn't shaved. He performed every part of the service that he was not allowed to do in the synagogue. And then when we got to the synagogue, he did the rest of it and he finished it. He also, one of the things that I'll never forget is the night my father died. It was December 26th. There was a huge snowstorm. It was absolutely, nobody could move. And of course, when the hospital called and told us, we called the rabbi and said that, well, hopefully we'll be able to get to see you tomorrow because the snow was just impossible. Less than an hour later, he pulled up to our door, having gotten the Stanford police to drive him there through the snowstorm. And I remember that well.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Let's come around. We'll start here, then let's go to the other side. Hold on.
Hi, I'm Gloria Green. I'm a relative newcomer. I've only been here 43 years. But, Rabbi, this is by way of a thank you to you. Ethan wanted to be here, but he's out of town. And he said, make sure you tell the rabbi that now that I'm the father of a 5-year-old who does Anim Zemirot on Shabbos here, I want you to know. He said, please remind the rabbi and thank you for the many Yankee games that he took me to when I was 8 and 9 years old, and when the rabbi had other business and couldn't take me, he gave tickets to other people and said to them, I'm giving you these tickets, but you can only have them on one condition, that Ethan Green goes with you. And now that he is much older, he so appreciates that, and he keeps reminding us about that. So, Kol HaKavod, thank you so much. And one other thing, I mentioned this before, but I really think it's important that I mention it again. This was before Howard Weiss even blew shofar, so it's maybe 38, 39 years ago. You would blow shofar, you did the entire Rosh Hashanah service, you always gave an outstanding Devar Torah, and then after you did that, what did you do? You took your shofar because Sandy at that time could no longer walk, and you made the trek 2.5 miles up Long Ridge Road to blow shofar for Sandy. And I don't know if you remember that, but we will never forget you for that and for many other niceties, and you were
Thank you.
terrific.
Thank you.
May you have long years and continue to do War mitzvot.
Thank you. Things I forgot.
I'm Sherry Murphy Sherman, and I've only been here for 41 years, so I'm Gloria. But I don't live here anymore, but I can't tell you how happy I am that it worked out, that this day, this night, I could be here and be part of this just walk down memory lane. There are so many beautiful memories of me with Rabbi, with this congregation. But I think there's another whole piece that he built bridges into the community that were so unique for an Orthodox rabbi. And I think about Union Baptist Church coming here and rocking the house in the sanctuary. That would only happen because of you, and only did happen because of you. I think Ethan got it a little wrong. He said, remember when he used to hug kids? He didn't used to, he still hugged kids. And the other thing about when he was a kid and how he loved to go to games, well, I think he's still a kid and he still likes to go to games. But mostly, I think it was just always your example. You didn't just teach us, you showed us by your example. You walked the walk, you walked to Gloria and Sandy's. I just want to tell a story about Rosie, if I may. And Rosie was in this congregation, but he was Rabbi Joe's brother. And it was so obvious to everybody. He loved our children, and he certainly loved Joe in a way that, you know, went way beyond employee, employer, whatever. And as you all know, Rosie was a huge New York Giants fan, and the Giants for years were horrible.
Oh.
Is it all right if I tell you?
Sure.
And Rosie kept saying, you know, this is a year for those Giants are going to the Rose Bowl. And Rosie and my husband Bill would always refute it and say, this is not happening. Well, one year they were really doing well, and Bill said, Rosie, if those Giants go to the Rose Bowl,
Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl, but it happened to be at Pasadena,
Right, that's right.
if they go to the Super Bowl, the rabbi and I will take you. Well, the season progressed, and the Giants kept winning, and it came up to the playoffs, and the Giants win, and Bill looks at the rabbi and he says, what are we going to do? And the rabbi said, simple, we're going to take him. So Rosie had never been on a plane before, and they took Howard, Sandy's son, Adam.
Ow.
Oh, yeah,
Ow.
I'm sorry. And the four of them, and Bill had gotten the seats, he got great seats, 4 seats together near the 50-yard line. And being the geniuses they are, they got out there and they're selling tickets for a lot of money, and Bill and the rabbi say, I bet we could sell our tickets and really buy some other ones and make a big score. So they sell the 4 tickets, and then they proceed to try and buy 4 tickets to get into the stadium. They're starting to play the national anthem. Rosie is about crying outside. But to Rabbi Joe, he had faith, and a miracle happened. They got 4 tickets in separate sections. But they probably paid more for the second set. Anyway, they had a wonderful time, and you walked the walk, and you played the game, and in my book, you made a home run every time you got up to hit the ball.
Thank you.
I am even more of a newcomer. I'm only a mere 34 years. And the memory that I want to share with you is even much younger than that. It's only 7 years old. But I think it's a very natural progression of the stories that we've heard about Rabbi Aaron Krantz. As many of you know, my son Joey, when he was attending Brandeis University, fell in love with a wonderful girl named Amy, who happened to be from, if not the only, one of the very few Jewish families in Roswell, New Mexico. And they fell in love, they decided to get married, and Amy had her heart set on a home wedding. And we decided decided that I had only two requirements for this wedding. It had to be a kosher wedding, and it had to have a halakhic ceremony. I wanted my rabbi, I wanted Rabbi Aaron Krantz there. So we asked him, "You ready for a trip to Santa Fe, Rabbi?" And sure enough, Rabbi and Sandy came with us and came to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to officiate at Joey's wedding, which was actually in Roswell. Now, I will tell you that, you know, you've heard of Roswell, it's where supposedly the aliens landed. I will tell you, when 52 Orthodox Jews from Stanford got off the bus on Carolina Way in Roswell, New Mexico, they thought we were the aliens. Believe me. And Amy wasn't sure about this, you know, an Orthodox rabbi. She was not from a traditional family, not from an observant family. And I told her, no, Rabbi Joe is not like most Orthodox rabbis. And then he gave them, as an engagement gift, a copy of the book, Kosher Sex. This is not like most Orthodox rabbis. So I won't go into most of the details about making a strictly kosher and Orthodox wedding in Roswell, New Mexico. I won't go into most of the details about renting out the Civic Center and flying in the mashgiach and buying 200 dishes and a myriad of details that are probably much too long for this evening. But what I wanted to convey was the lesson that Rabbi Joe taught to us. He didn't just talk about, he made us realize that these little things were not problems. They weren't even challenges. They were opportunities. It was an opportunity to do a Kiddush Hashem. It was an opportunity to show other people, mostly not Jewish, what our principles were like and what it was like to live a life that was true to Torah principles wherever you are. In Stanford, in Israel, in Europe, anywhere, on a cruise, and even in Roswell, New Mexico. And we're very, very grateful to you for that. It was an incredible experience, and Rabbi Joe really made the wedding. There were many people that were saying, "Gee, this is kosher food, this is really good, you know, this is kosher wine." They couldn't believe it was kosher wine, it was delicious. And every single person came over to us and said, "You know, I didn't know a Jewish wedding was so beautiful and so meaningful." And Rabbi Joe explained every single tradition and made everyone there feel like they were part of our family. We will always be grateful to you for that, and we will always remember that, and we will always carry with us the lessons that you taught us when
Thank
you
you.
came to Roswell, New Mexico, and officiated Joey's wedding.
Thank you.
I want to thank you very much for being such great inspiration for my son Ethan. You also came to Pennsylvania to officiate Glenn's wedding. And Glenn's Brit Milah was in Greenwich Hospital, and luckily they told me that only Rabbi Aaron Krantz is allowed to do it. Ethan's was at home, and almost we missed you because you were parading on Hamilton Avenue instead. So I want to thank you for all that.
Thank you.
And wish you all the best. And I hope to live in Israel next to you one day.
Thank you.
Amen. Wonderful. Okay, last one.
My name is Harry Weinroth. I came to Stanford in '49.
Greener. The greener.
Greenland. I was 6 years in concentration camp. And the rabbi was my best friend.
Oh, you.
My best friend was the rabbi. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. Rabbi, thank you very much for everything what you've done for me and for my whole family.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Rabbi, I'm not a member here. So I haven't forgotten our trip to Egypt ever. I recently talked about the fact that you talked about you weren't comfortable with the yarmulke, and you wore a hat, and you took it to services. It was the best trip of my life. I live in Atria. I keep telling them what it was, how great it is, with this great guy called my son. But you are a wonderful person. I remember how you gathered us together, reminded us not to be frightened. When you landed in India, and wherever we were going, Egypt, you gathered us together because we were a little worried, because the soldiers were waiting on land for us with their guns drawn with bandits. But we had a marvelous time, wonderful rabbi you are, and we enjoy every minute with David, Lorraine, and our kids. And I'll never forget their young son, very young, at a time I don't know whether it was that time, we were, I think, in Israel, and he asked, all he wanted was a hot dog.
Bless you.
Where could we get a hot dog? He was glowing.
Howard. I think right now Rabbi Aaron wants to know whether you should leave or not. Most of you spoke about your experiences with the rabbi, and I'd like to share a couple of quick stories about his experiences or things that he had experienced while he was here. And most people knew him in his public format, and sometimes that was controversial. And there were many times where I would ask him why that was done, and he'd say, I don't know, it's just my style. So I'm going to tell you two things about his heart and one thing about his mind. I used to walk home with him every Friday night from shul. And I was younger then, and all I wanted to know about was, who did you speak with this week that called you? The Prime Minister of Israel, the Pope, Abba Eben. You know, that's what I wanted to hear, the Jews. And he would say to me, walking home, he said, before we get into that, I'll tell you later. He says, you know, I went to the hospital today, and I visited with somebody who was very ill. And when I left that person, he had a smile on his face. That made my day. That's what was important to him. Not who or what big shot would call him, but the fact that he was able to put a smile on someone's face who was very ill. And in the same light, I remember, I don't know how many years ago it was, but there was, the phone rang in the office, and Ruth Brown, may she rest in peace, went in and said, Rabbi, there's somebody on the phone I think you should speak with. And it was a couple who did not belong to any synagogue in Stanford. But they had a young 6-month-old child that was very ill. And they said they need to speak to a rabbi. They said they called the Reform Temple and the rabbi was not in. They called another temple and the rabbi said he had appointments with members and he could not fit them in the schedule. When Rabbi Aaron Krantz heard that they had a 6-month child that was very ill, he just canceled his appointment and said, you come in right now. Now these were not members, but they were Jewish and they needed to speak to a rabbi. They came in and they spent whatever time, an hour or so, and they had to drive their 6-month-old up to Yale that day. And he said, you're in no condition to drive him up. I'm going to drive you up, you and your son. That's what Rabbi Aaron Krantz' heart is about. The story about his mind. When Shalom Cohen unfortunately passed away, you paid a Shiva call in Williamsburg. You remember this story?
Oh, sure. No, it's Shalom's brother passed away.
Okay.
He was sitting
Shiva.
Shiva.
Shiva call in Williamsburg. He comes out and he sees a couple of guys stealing his tires. So he goes up to them. Not a good move to do in Williamsburg.
And he said, "Excuse me, you're stealing my tires." I said, "These aren't your tires." He said, "Well, that's my car." He said, "It's your car, but these are our tires." So they proceeded to take off all the tires. So he's thinking, let me see, what am I going to do now? I'm going to have to go out and buy 4 new tires. So he says to one of them, he said, first he said, "I'm going to call the police." He said, "Nah, we'll be long gone." So he said, "You know, it just so happens I'm in the need for 4 tires. How much would you like to sell them for?" And they told him, and he bought us some tires.
Good. We're good. Sandy, you hear all these stories, you're taking notes of it. Just want you to know.
I'd just like to say one thing. In the name of the Jewish Historical Society, I'm a Ramon, by the way, I want to thank you, Rabbi Aaron Kranz, so much for the stories and the anecdotes and the wonderful remarks that have been made about you tonight. This is a heritage that I don't believe has ever been done before in Stanford, and this is a precious just item, more than an item. It's a history that'll go into our archives here at Stanford. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to thank Lorraine, Herb, and of course Rabbi Aaron Kranz for your time. And Hashem should bless all of you and all of us with continued health, joy, to continue to appreciate all of the wonderful memories, but also hopefully use those to inspire us, God willing, as we move to continued strength in our synagogue. Chazak ve'amatz, be strong, and look forward, God willing, to see everyone very soon.